Hey there, welcome to episode 100 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 3:40 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, October 8, 2025. If you hear any loud crashes or booms, that's coming from upstairs. I'm really hoping my neighbor upstairs is moving. Today's episode, we are going to talk about then versus now. This is not a deep dive documentary format, a look at the evolution of culture from an individual perspective. That'd be a larger undertaking. This is just a random meandering, comparative sort of a look at some of my own experiences, and maybe they correlate with some of yours. Some observations. Towards the end, I will touch on why this is the topic of the week. It's not a big deal. It's not huge, but it's just one of those things like, I don't know about this. Then versus now. If you are not familiar with quaggling sand, it is a technical term that I coined when I was, 4 or 5 years old. You may refer to this as pins and needles. It's the return of circulation to a limb, usually after you've been maybe sitting on your foot or laying on your arm. It goes numb, and when circulation returns, quaggling sand, or you can certainly continue to use pins and needles or whatever it is you use to describe this process. Quaggling sand, in this context, it is a recollection, a meandering look at this and that, tales, stories, random bits, this and that. So if you... Some of these stories over the past 100 episodes will resonate with you, perhaps. You will have had a similar experience, or you may find my own version of what I've experienced interesting, fascinating, humorous, ridiculous. Maybe you're just on the treadmill now and you want to hear someone talk to you. Well, here I am. Quaggling sand. Usually no guests. I can't imagine this being a guest show, but who knows? Who knows? Never put it past people, and that would be another story. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, and that may be in any number of places, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary of one sentence, which I will read to you. And keeping it light, as always, 2 links. I could have added some more links here, but this is not a documentary. So the 2 usuals. So let's get started so we can get finished on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. We publish Quaggling Sand on Wednesdays, usually in the morning, but hey, that's the way it is. You're not asked to pay for this episode, so you get it at our mutual convenience, I suppose. It's all for fun. The show notes thus. Today's summary: we all have seen the memes about how young people today would not have survived what we went through, the norms and expectations that they were versus now. Then versus now. The expectations, not the people. When I was a kid, yeah, that kind of stuff. That's where we're headed for today. The links for today's episode, the usual self-promotion or promotion of this program, quagglingsand.com. So quaggling is, of course, obviously spelled QUOGGLINGSAND. Quagglingsand.com. You can visit that site. I keep talking about how I'm going to make the sites look better. I literally worked on my own content generation tools last night as part of our Innovate for Vegas Foundation initiatives. This is a basic tool to convert one thing to another, mostly text files. It's part of my grand scheme to make site production easier. These tools kind of exist already, but they're not in the form that I'm looking for. It's like a brick in the wall. It has to fit. So continue work on that. It'll look nice eventually. Do you visit that website? If you do, great. If not, you're missing out on what it looks like today, so that later you will say, oh, it looks a lot better now. And the profile page linking anything, or everything, I should say, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. No obligation to spend money. Like I said, you don't have to pay for anything. You can, if you want. There is a sort of a tip jar style thing. You can literally buy me a coffee with actual cash, or more likely a credit card. Or you can find all the links. Well, you can do both. You can find all the links to all of my audio programs, various projects in the form of GitHub repos or organizations with repositories in them, or some other stuff, some biographical information. There is a weekly show called Buy Me an Update, which publishes first at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts. That's linked on there as well. But everything eventually finds its way onto Spotify for creators, which then fans out to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, an RSS feed, YouTube podcast channels. It's all there. You can find quagglingsand.com on YouTube. So it's linked from the buymeacoffee.com/danhugo site. It's also linked from quagglingsand.com. This whole link section I'm looking to trim down. So even everything I've said just now will diminish over time if more and more people are just finding what I'm talking about by clicking. You can just click on Quaggling Sand. That'll get you where you want to go. So quagglingsand.com. And then again, I didn't go ahead and link references and resources and whatnot. That's not what this is. This is just a random meandering walk along my own timeline from then versus now. I guess it would have made sense to say from then to now, but we don't need to make sense. This is free stuff. A little intro to get us started. I have mentioned before that I was born in New Jersey. We lived eventually in it was Hasbrook Heights before, and then New Milford was where we ended up before we moved to across the country to Phoenix. So we lived eventually in my almost 6 years in New Jersey in New Milford, which for our part of it was a nice little neighborhood that allowed for a certain amount of slack that may not have been enjoyed elsewhere. That is, I don't know if I was not quite 6. I don't know if all of New Jersey was like this. I'm going to guess Newark was not, but it did have a neighborhood feel, almost a village. For better or worse, we moved away before I turned 6 years old to the Phoenix area in Arizona, which was a different thing altogether, to say the least. The usual meme is about when we were kids in the 80s or maybe in the 70s or the 60s, whatever. When we were kids, we didn't have to do this, or you would never have lasted, or yeah. Any adult out there has got to be wondering what our parents and grandparents would be saying about when they were adults in the 80s. Interesting times these. They could have been adults in the 70s or the 60s and so on as well. So if you are an adult today, it isn't only when I was a kid, but where have we landed? What are we doing here? Yeah, interesting times these indeed. So first, New Milford, where we lived, I have definite memories of hanging out in the neighborhood, comfortably interacting with our next door neighbors on one side with their Irish setter and the white fence, not picket, but your basic 2 planks of wood and posts. Good fences make good neighbors. This was an okay fence, I suppose, but they did have a nice Irish setter, very personable. And on the right, with my first best friend, Lori, and her family, parents Elsie and Marty. Marty was, he worked for the fire department. Elsie, as far as I know, stayed at home a lot. Our neighbor across the street with a Jeep and a thick beard, I think. I remember that guy. And neighbors around the corner near the school with the Kerns and the Snyders and the kids there that were around my age. Denise and Scott, respectively. There were other kids, but I think those are the ones that were my age. I cannot imagine a kid under age 6, so let us say 5 years old, wandering around a neighborhood, talking to people like we all knew each other in these modern times. I think if I saw a 5-year-old kid walking down the street in Vegas, I don't know. I don't even know. Do you call the police? Do you see if there's a YouTuber videoing, they're probably making a video. That's probably what's happening. I used to walk to school with Lori, in fact, which was not so great a distance. It was, I actually looked on Google Maps. We did largely on our own, although there was a crossing guard to cross Berkeley Street. We were on Graphic Boulevard, about 2 blocks, which I did check. So it was about 2 blocks, 2 neighborhood blocks, not 2 massive city blocks. A street lined with homes where the front doors of the homes faced the street. Onto the school, Berkeley Elementary. Berkeley spelled with a Berkerley. What is it? Berkeley? I typed it here. Berkley, yeah. not Berkeley like in California. So we crossed Berkeley Street with the aid of a crossing guard. Her name escapes me, but I did used to speak to her like everybody else. Uh, and we were on to school, so done, piece of cake. Even when I began hanging out with Timothy, Patrick, and Michael, doing a bit more exploring beyond Graphic Boulevard, as young, troublesome boys are to do. Troublesome in just a minor sense. I remember there was some sort of like a stone quarry style or something that involved like climbing piles of stones or something. I don't know, but nothing too crazy. There was a nearby river, the Hackensack River, I believe it was. I don't remember ever getting involved in that, so it wasn't the beginning of a Stephen King novel or anything like that. But yeah, nothing particularly interesting to report in the way of stranger danger, for example. Obviously, today would be a pile of concerns about any of this. Again, at around the age of 5 or 6 years old nowadays, would you ever let your 5 or 6-year-old kid just wander around the neighborhood alone or with similarly aged peers? I can't imagine it. Maybe. I don't know. Depends on where you live. If memory serves, we took the subway into Harlem, which I misspelled somehow. We took the subway into Harlem from Fort Lee in New Jersey and then down to Manhattan or other areas when we took the subway, which I think was most of the time, to hang out in Central Park, go to the museums, get some bagels, whatever else we were up to. No, this was not a solo journey. I wasn't riding the subway at age 5 by myself, but I do recall these journeys to be largely uneventful, though certainly much more cautious. Turning in rings, staying close. Don't touch that. Don't look at that guy. Don't talk to that person. Definitely not New Milford. The subways in New York, in the New York area, are always in the news in one way or another. Usually bad, but sometimes good. The subway. The last time I rode the subway in New York was many years ago, but it was in the last decade. It was fine. I remember it being more crowded when I was younger, but then I don't know. I was a smaller person. Everything seemed bigger and more crowded, I suppose. But the subways, when I last rode them in the New York area, were fine. I don't remember them being quite as sort of calm, but anything can happen, especially if you're underground. You're kind of all stuck in a tube. So interesting. Very different riding the tube, the underground. In London, for example, I've done that. That's just a different thing. The subways in New York are different culture, different place, different people, everything. So I don't know. I don't know if young people just jump on the subway like it's nothing or if there's still a little bit of an air of caution. I'll have to go back there one of these days. We eventually moved on to Phoenix. When we first moved to Phoenix, while our eventual destination home was still under construction, and we talked about this in a previous episode, we did a brief tour in the Casa Cielo, Casa, like house, Casa Cielo apartments, very near Cortez High School on Dunlap Avenue in Phoenix, if you're familiar with the area, and it was not a great place. This, unfortunately, has not changed in many places, where apartment complexes that appear reasonable, very visible, and not tucked away behind a dumpster are still all dumpster. Bad landlords and shoddy complexes are still very much a reality then and now. So that's an unfortunate comparison, I suppose. Where I live at the present, they lean in the wrong direction frequently. It can be annoying, but what are you gonna do? We used to talk about school. In this case, about half a mile on a 2-lane 47. I'm sorry. We used to walk. I wrote talk to school. That's hilarious. We used to walk to school. We used to walk to school and talk sometimes. In this case, about half a mile from where my parents' home is. We walked along a 2-lane sort of not a major street, definitely a minor street, but definitely in the grid of the Phoenix area. So it could get traffic now and then, depending on traffic conditions on the major streets or car collisions or other such things. So it could be a little bit busy. We would walk to and from. There were no homes on the street itself. So this is probably a more modern development. There were walls enclosing little enclaves of a larger housing development. The yeah, so when you were walking along the street, there was you didn't have a sense you were walking in a community. You were walking through an open air, just like an alley, really. I mean, when you think about it, yeah, you didn't see any actual people other than the fellow students walking to school, which is fine, I guess, strength in numbers, but a very different feeling, not at all like a communal. Uh, there were a few homes in right across the street from the school, the front of the school, that did, I believe, if I remember correctly, have their doors opening towards the street. I could check that. Okay, I paused there. Yeah, I did. I just looked. I don't think the houses have been torn down, so I do remember there was something unusual about the homes directly across the street from the front of this elementary school I was attending. They do have their front doors opening towards the school, but this was like four homes in total. So I remember at least two. Wait, let me. It was, yeah, it was four. Oh, I think, well, yeah, I think it was four homes. One, two, three, four. Yes. So four driveways that opened onto the street, and I don't remember there being walls. So I think you would actually see the front of the house. I can see that they have fencing around their homes today, whatever it was back then. But anyway, the take home, you're walking to school through a collection of walled gardens, and that's still true today. So I think that's been generally a trend, which started a long time ago. But definitely, if you don't live in a small, more closely knit community, tract homes, large home developments, they give us, especially if there's homeowners associations involved, they probably want to keep everything in. So a lot of walls and a lot of rules and stuff. So yeah, not as attractive, perhaps. The where I live today in the Vegas suburbs, up in the northern part of the actual city of Las Vegas. Same thing. We have students walking to school. I used to live very near an elementary school. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was named after someone. And if I happened to be out walking or doing anything near where I lived, occasionally I would encounter little groups of kids of all ages. There was an elementary school, so they could have been younger or older. There are several crossing guards doing their thing. But again, we live among a lot of little walled in areas. There are homes that have doors opening into the street so that you're seeing the front of homes and not just walls. It's kind of a mixture. So I've seen the kids walking around. Sometimes they have attitude for some reason, like I'm getting in their way, or yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't know. That's a strange one. I think that's new, maybe a little bit less. I'm not going to say respecting their elders, but like respecting other people, not treating them like you're the big thing and get out of my way kind of stuff. It's very, very odd. I don't know. Not a fan. But I think kids walking to school seems to still be a thing, so I guess that's okay. They're almost certainly talking on their cell phones or using their phones in some way. So I can't say that they're walking in groups and talking, like interacting with each other. Sometimes not. So yeah, they're probably watching TikTok. We only did the walking. We didn't walk with our phones looking at TikTok videos or whatnot. Phoenix being Phoenix, one way to get out of the heat, aside from playing outside with plenty of water, as I described in that previous episode, was to head to the mall and, well, walk around. No need to spend money. We would sometimes get dropped off to wander around Metro Center Mall, for example, let us say in the mid-'80s or give or take. And it was about as boring as one might imagine, literally just wandering around, seeing the same stores, the same goofy tile, the same food court, the same ice skating rink. We went ice skating a couple times. I have walked around malls briefly here in Vegas, and they are either dead, which all of Vegas is alleged to be, or more utilitarian. That is, I don't see people that appear to be just wandering around aimlessly. I see a lot of people going in, shopping, carrying shopping bags, doing their thing. So I don't know that malls are the hangout that they used to be, but I could be wrong. I do not see young people wandering around the malls when I do go now and then. Like usually it'd be 2 or 3, 4 or 5, but yeah, sort of a junior high school age or so, maybe not driving yet. That's probably the best reason to do such things. I don't even know if that is still a thing, though. As for Metro Center itself, it descended into blighted status over many years, became less safe, more dodgy, less appealing in general. Now it's gone. This is a guess, your mileage may vary, but my sense is watching or making short video content, taking selfies, and generally engaging online has taken the crown away from hanging out at the mall, which is probably a net negative. Probably safer in one sense, but less safe in another. Less physical, less actual interaction with other humans. Also, could be good, could be bad. So, I just don't see. I could be completely wrong. There may be malls packed with young people not on their phones right now. Who knows? Movies play a pivotal role in American culture, certainly, and probably elsewhere. I mentioned some time ago the notion of the midnight movie in hot climates like Phoenix, but let me flip back to 1977 when we went and saw Star Wars in the theater when it was released. Movies and movie theaters, much has been made of them over the years, especially during and after the pandemic lockdown times and their financial troubles. But long before then, the home theater setup with THX or Dolby certified home audio and the ever improving display, now huge and flat, thanks to OLED and quantum dots and LEDs. I'm sorry, LCDs and whatnot. Before that, in what is it? IPS in plane switching. So TFT, IPS, LCD technologies, OLED, organic LEDs, quantum dots, all these things. Crazy developments in flat displays. But before that, when they had less ideal projection, plasma was a big thing for a while, but projection TVs were sort of the main accessible thing. Huge CRTs that would reflect up into an even larger rear projection scheme. That was kind of not so great, but they were taking over. We have some theaters here in Vegas, and there are still movies released first in theaters. So I'm not saying they went away or anything, but streaming at home and mobile in general has really taken that away. Does anyone at this point think, I am going to go to a movie theater and see that movie? Or is it really, I will stream that on Amazon or Apple or whatever, Disney Plus, Paramount, whatever that's becoming again, Netflix, of course. So any number of places you can just stream when you feel like it, probably as part of a monthly subscription, or maybe you have to pay a couple dollars. So you can pay a couple dollars and play it on your home theater with a room full of people versus paying $1 million to go see it in a theater. And that's before you've purchased anything to drink or snack on, which you can do at home to your heart's content. The shared movie theater experience, though, has gone the way of most other things, highly personalized in space and time. I want to watch what I want to watch, and I don't want other people around me talking, making noises, crying, screaming, being on their phone. And I'm just talking about me. I think this is a net loss. Specifically, the midnight movie, or in general, the notion of family-friendly outings with this common social connection at scale where are they? What's going on? As I described many episodes ago, my high school friends and I would visit movie theaters featuring midnight movies in the summer, when the summers in Phoenix were 100 degrees still at midnight, right? Or close. I think we're still there. And there were people of all ages, whether groups of friends or families, always a good time. I mean, you could literally bring your kids to a movie at midnight because it was cooling off a little bit. Remember the low temperatures right before the sun rises, and it would still be in the 90s. Still is sometimes. So at the theater, anyway, it was a good time. Here again, a net loss as fewer and fewer people are doing movies at movie theaters. And while home theaters and personal devices are part of the problem, the prices are not helping at all. Certainly with reduced demand in order to meet the costs of having movies and movie theaters, you got to charge people more for enjoying that experience, if that's still the word to use. Those family outings become a choice between movie night and paying the mortgage, and that's even if you're even lucky enough to have a mortgage. And the movies themselves, while modern cinema is not great anyway, not to say there are not some really good productions. Anything from Christopher Nolan I think is interesting, sometimes independent or other times from big companies, big budgets, and so on. It depends. There's still good stuff. Usually comes down to a director or the story or both. Sometimes the actors. It's a collection of things, and they vary from time to time and place to place and story to story. Alien Earth, for example. Not any of those things, just bad. And if we are lucky today, the story will, and by the way, so Alien came out in what, 79? But that's a then versus now. No one knows how to make a good movie along those lines anymore. It was a massive change in a good way, and that disappeared or dissipated in general over the last 30 years or so. So that's too bad. I suspect that there is a through line, though, that begins with the first silent movie and runs to today, where everything is a reboot or a prequel or some other retread. Very difficult to come by something that's truly original and interesting. It does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't, but oof. And by the way, when movies are not good, you definitely hear about it. There are people who've built entire YouTuber careers on that fact and making videos about it continuously. Many more hours of video about how bad a movie is than the time it took to make the movie, which none of those people have ever done. It's hard to come by good stuff, though. Would we have done the midnight movies with today's slop? Probably, but we would just sit at Denny's and watch on our phones instead, right? We could sit at Denny's and have a Grand Slam or whatever delightful victuals they offer at whatever hour, getting out of the hot Phoenix area day or wherever you are. Overnight when the temperatures are lower and all kinds of characters are out, it's a different thing. But no real need to sit in a dark room and all look in the same direction. We could be more interactive. So maybe a net win. But still, something has gone. It is the shared experiences. Aside from movie theaters, remember watching serialized television before VCRs, much less hard drive recorders and streaming on demand. Remember the discussions the day after at school or work or whatever or wherever about the ongoing saga of whatever series was hot, the latest episode of Cheers or MASH or Friends or whatever. And all that came from these. Yes, there is still television today. There are probably still soap operas, for example, and those are daily serials. But it would be hard to argue it is anywhere near as influential as it once was. Now, when I say TV, I mean like broadcast TV. Sure, there's the Game of Thrones type series that are out there. Those are on some sort of streaming service, or you're paying. It's almost like having cable, but so it's a little bit more directed if you don't have the right streaming service in your collection of extra bills to pay each month, and you're probably not watching whatever the thing is. I never saw one episode of Breaking Bad, nor of Game of Thrones, nor of any of these popular series because I just don't have Netflix or I don't have some other. So you have to be in. So you're either in or out. Yes, you can sign up for these services, watch something, and then get off, but maybe just don't get on. So yeah, shared experiences, it provides like a common basis of conversation, of cultural interaction, some trends. Anybody who, the hairstyle of the day is usually seen on TV. And all that came from these sorts of things, not only television, but certainly television was a basis for such commonality. Yes, there is still television, so we can't really discount it completely, but video on demand, binge watching, and perhaps most important, availability of older television series and movies to stream whenever means there is less common thread on the entertainment side linking people and conversation, with sports and politics, basically pugilism, rising to fill that gap. And that's too bad. Yipes, in fact. I used to love watching MASH and Simon and Simon and Magnum PI, and there was just a host of television programming that sort of set the tone for pop culture and so on. But also Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, various game shows. I watched the Whammy situation where the guy memorized the layout of the game. We were watching that every day when he was on for the whole week. We saw it happening when it was on. So those are common reference points. They're little mile markers in the journey. And nowadays, those things are all watched whenever you feel it, or consumed. It could be music, it could be anything. You can get those things whenever you want. So there's no more Tower Records. So you're not hanging out at Tower Records looking at the latest music releases and other things. Nope, gone. So everything's on your phone. Thanks, Steve Jobs. On the other side of the spectrum, it's possible to notify everyone you know or have ever known. Let me fix that typo. have ever known, or people you do not know. You have no idea who these people are, of every aspect of your life. The friend, the notion of friend has completely been blown away, destroyed. And you follow people. You don't know them, you follow them. Or you have followers and you brag about that. There was a time when writing a letter to someone using a pen and paper and licking glue on an envelope and a stamp in order to mail it physically across some distance was an actual thing people did. I did it many times. It used to be a special thing to receive a letter from someone not heard from in some time with good news or bad, maybe some photos enclosed, who knows? It could have been anything. But now, and it was for us, it was from one person to another. But now we almost loathe the full inbox, which isn't even a real thing anymore. It's virtual, somewhere in the cloud. We block unwanted direct messages and we fend off weirdos who have our number in their contacts list, but don't know our names. I get those messages several times a week at this point. Hello, who is this? I have your number, but I don't know who you are. Well, it's good to have mysteries in your life sometimes. Block. Do you keep in touch with your friends? Do they keep in touch with you? I find today that both of those are basically no for me, which is one of the contributing factors to today's episode. Tribalism has basically taken hold, and while this has never not been the case in the history of the United States anyway, I read a book recently. I can't remember the exact title, but it was The Friendship Between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. They were absolutely not similar politically, but they were hoping for some similar outcomes at least. How are we doing on that? The weather has turned hotter over the last decade when it comes to this kind of stuff. Obviously, it's about as hot as it's going to get lately here in the United States. When I was in junior high school, we were concerned with The Day After, a movie about the aftermath of a nuclear war. Today, we are concerned with they and what they have done to us. And it's always them, not we, and so on. This is too deep to go into here in any real way, but it's a little bit shocking to see how far, I wrote how far disagreement has come in the modern era, no doubt helped along with that lack of personal handwritten letters. Instead, we're all online. We're all consuming all manner of fallacy, all manner of confirmation bias, for example, all manner of motivated reasoning, all manner of Mott and Bailey debate, and just the notion of debate has devolved into pugilism. Now we always get a story that depends entirely on what side we are on and what we want to hear. And I think that's just not good. It's just amplifying everything. And I know you hear amplified and bubbles and all that stuff, but think about it. Think about the things you hear from some people and you think, what are you talking about? It reminds me of this game. Now I got to remember what the game is. The cultural awareness game. It's a card game. No, is it? Yeah, it's a card game. This is a good one. Barnga. Yeah. Barnga. Barnga. So here's the game in a nutshell. You can look for it yourself and you can even get it, but the rules are fairly simple. You have a room of people, or several people. You have multiples of 3 or 4, probably. Say you have 20 people, so that's 5 teams. Each team gets a sheet of rules about the card game that they're about to play. They get a deck of cards and they cannot speak. You must communicate only by following the rules of the game. You're playing cards. There's no signaling. There's no commentary. There's no hinting, nothing. So the game proceeds, and whatever the game is, and you're all playing at a different table, so you're not interacting between teams. It's not teams, but it's groups of card players, individuals. And then at some point, there's a signal, and one person from each of the tables gets up. You can pick however you want, but one person is going to get up and move to another team. So you all kind of rotate. Every table now has 3 members that were there before and 1 new member. And then they begin playing cards, and almost instantly you'll start to get reactions. What is going on? Because the rules at each of the tables were different. So because everybody was playing by the same rules, and then the population was stirred up a little bit, now people are playing by different rules that are not like the ones they were just playing by. So now it's essentially an us versus them. Like, what are you doing? You don't fit in anymore. Very interesting experience. I highly recommend it. So speaking of us and them, cars have become a real thing. Cars have always been a thing, but lately, whether they're electric or not, where they're made, who is making them, whether they are driving themselves, whether they blow up, which is a problem. That was always a problem, but now it's a bigger problem. Lithium burns like nobody's business. Cars and culture, two great tastes that are most definitely a United States thing. Cars are a big thing in a lot of places now, but cars and culture have definitely grown up together in the United States. Do they go great together though? Well, I got my driver's license in the summer of 1987 and lucked out with a 1970 Volkswagen Bug. No useful seatbelts, among other challenges faced with that vehicle. But it worked, got me to school, got me to work. Good times. Seatbelts, sort of a nice to have back in those days, but not essential. Sitting in the, and very rarely did we wear seatbelts, if there even were seatbelts. So it was just one of those things. And it wasn't from the, oh, we'll just get thrown clear of any collisions. It was just not something we thought about. Sitting in the back of a station wagon in what we back then called the backpack, facing to the rear, right up against the back of the vehicle sometimes with a clear view of any future collisions from behind. Probably not wearing seatbelts as well. It was an interesting time when it came, and let's not even talk about being in the back of a pickup truck until you suddenly were not. Dogs and kids, get back there. We got places to go. I think I've told this story before. I was once this was the what was it called? Def Leppard concert we attended at Compton Terrace in the Phoenix area. A long series of events took place that ended up with one of the people we were with, coming to pick us up. It was the people most likely to still be awake at whatever time in the morning it was, 2, 3 in the morning. There was a lot of walking, and it was in the summer in Phoenix. Yeah. So this family of one of the people in our little, I think it was about 5 of us, had a pickup truck with a shell over the top. So they came and picked us up. For some reason, I got to sit in the front with them, and everybody else, the other 4, were in the back of the pickup truck. So we couldn't really communicate directly, maybe a little slider window, but so they're all back there. They have the truck open to get airflow. We had air conditioning in the cab, but so they're back there. I don't know why they were being tortured like that, but luckily we were not too far from getting home. So we were driving along. We drove through a neighborhood very near the final destination home, and there was this cloud of mist hanging over everything. Well, we're in the cab. We don't hear any. I mean, we don't know what's going on. It was a chlorine factory or whatever that would be called, had some sort of a problem, and there was a cloud of chlorine gas hanging over this little neighborhood. So everybody that was in the back of the truck, it's only funny because they only got like some minor skin irritations on their limbs. I think they even managed to keep it out of their eyes. So yeah, just get in the back of the truck, everything will be fine. Sort of chlorine gas, a little chemical warfare, not a big deal. Obviously, the notion of getting out on the road trips, movies about road trips, movies about the lack of gasoline, these were big back then. Regular leaded gasoline, a big thing, definitely playing a negative role in societal development for a couple of decades, with an actual provable medical impact on the development of brain and personality and the population in general. Regular gasoline was cheap. When I had my Bug, for example, it was 79 cents per gallon. I could fill up my car for under $8. Leaded gasoline faded, but it was still legal and available in 2021 in some parts of the world. And it is still available in some cases for some uses. Most cars are still burning gasoline or diesel fuel today. A vast majority. Same with airplanes and ships. So the air is still not great. And despite these big advances in battery technology and electric vehicles and range, and eventually they'll all be self-driving, it's going to be a while to get how many billions of cars off the road. So I think that's probably one constant, is that cars are still, they're safer, in quotes. Sometimes regulation forces you to wear a seatbelt. Yeah, I think you can get ticketed in most places in the United States now for not wearing a seatbelt. You can get punched in the face with an airbag. Those are now pretty much standard. Not so in my Volkswagen Bug. There was a metal rod connecting the steering wheel to the front wheels for steering. kind of like a missile or a javelin. And yeah, no airbags, no seatbelts, no engine in the front to take any shock. It was all steel. Me, some steel, and another car. Good times. Luckily, I never tested that myself. The desire to have a car for one's own self may be fading somewhat from what I'm reading and hearing from people. When I was taking driver education in high school, that was the goal in life, to have a car and drive wherever we wanted to go at our young 16 years old. Today, word on the street is car ownership is not so important. Ride sharing, which requires that at least someone own a car at some point in the transaction, though self-driving taxis may change that in someone's lifetime, may have taken some of that shine off an individual's desire for car ownership. There's a car-free movement going on in general. I myself enjoy using public transit. It's just a lot easier to deal with in the Vegas area, even though our public transit system here is junk. Though I suspect what is happening revolves around older cars staying on the road longer, not wanting to pay for a car that costs as much as a home at some point. The old Toyota that maybe your grandparents owed is probably still working just great. And to be honest, a new car, they all look similar. There's nothing really interesting. Oh, they're bringing knobs back. Get the touchscreens out of there. Who is using touchscreens? You can't use your phone, but in order to operate your vehicle, you got to use this big giant touchscreen that distracts you. Yeah. So the knobs are coming back. I guess that's the big news. It's kind of like, ooh, curved TVs are going to be the big thing. Nope, we're bringing back the flat TV, and everybody got excited. And the prices are, yeah, like I said, they're like getting a new home. If you can get there's a pickup truck that I think Bezos is involved with in some way. It's a little very simplified. I mean, when you look at what they're doing, it's basically Volkswagen Part 2. It's a pickup truck, very minimalist, something like $25,000. Volkswagen vehicles were like $1,000 or something when they first came to the United States. Obviously, those dollars are not adjusted, but $25,000 for a minimalist pickup truck, kind of like a Toyota. What was not the Tacoma, the sort of the tiny little pickup truck that Tacoma. No, I'm gonna have to look this up. But yeah, so cars now are there. I don't own a car, and I'm happy that I don't own a car. It's a headache that I don't need. And at this point, you can do ride sharing, and the person that does own a car or leases it or whatever they're doing can come and pick me up and give me a ride. I can jump on a bus for $2. I can walk, right? So to me, car ownership is not essential, and in fact is almost a detriment in many ways. So yeah, I think things have changed. Like I said, there was a time when, I got to have a car. I had a car, and then I would lease a car, and I would lease another car, and I had many cars through my Silicon Valley days. Getting to work is arguably a fine reason, but for example, when I was working in San Francisco and living in Sunnyvale, which is close to San Jose, jump on the Caltrain, take the train up to the city, walk probably a mile to work. Walk around San Francisco to go to lunches and whatnot. No need to deal with parking. No need to deal with traffic and so on. It was the way to go. Having a car was more of a pain than not. What is the damn truck called? I just want to know because I got to know. Not the RAV4, not the Tacoma, not the Tundra. Was it the Tacoma? Maybe it was. Anyway, who knows? I wanted a pickup truck. I wanted a Toyota pickup truck one time. I actually test drove it, and I was like, having a back seat is convenient sometimes. Too often there's someone who needs a ride somewhere or whatever. Do you own a car? I do not, as I mentioned. I don't know that cars are as essential as they once were. I think it completely depends on where you live and what you do. So, but I think it's also much easier with various other developments over the last decades. I mean, getting around, that's a whole entire then versus now. You can literally digitally hitchhike, and the person that picks you up is probably not going to kill you. And there's a whole billing scheme, so they're not just doing it out of the goodness of their heart or desire to find victims. So I guess that's a major change. So car ownership is not really essential for at least the rider side of that transaction. So I think that's probably a net positive, but with a lot of caveats. But getting to work, speaking of, this almost goes without saying, but without getting political, economics in the United States and elsewhere favor profit over most anything else. And reduced regulation leads to capital accumulation at the top. That's just the way it is. That's why there's the 1% and the 0.1% and all that. There's no, it's not about political party, who's in power. It's purely economic policies. And that is how math works. It's not ideological. It's completely mathematical. You can look up the Pareto principle, for example, 80%, 20%, that kind of stuff. The nature of profit seeking and competition and acquisition and so on, it causes money to accumulate, capital accumulation, and that it goes up. What are you gonna do? When I was in high school, working at McDonald's was good times. Even at $3.50 per hour, which was, I think minimum wage was it was either $3.15 or $3.25 maybe. I started at minimum wage, whatever it was, and then it ended at, I think it was $3.90 or $3.85 an hour. If I recall, I got a few raises and whatnot, something in that region. In adjusted dollars, that's probably still $3.90 per hour today. No, I suppose today I would be making something like $10, $12 an hour in an equivalent setting, unless there's where you live or work, you're in a $20, $25 minimum wage area. Federal minimum wage is still, I think it's about $3.50. No, I think it's $7.25 federal minimum wage, and I think that's regardless of. No, I think that does account for tipped employees. U.S. minimum wage, $7.25. Yeah, so that's insanity. I was working at McDonald's when I was 16 years old, so in 38 years. The federal minimum wage is only twice as much as I was making when I was a kid. Okay, good times. I to be honest, I'm not a fan of a minimum wage. I think market forces should drive that, but that's a different thing entirely. It was a good experience. It was probably a fundamental core experience, like having a job that interacts with adults and other people is good, I think, at an early age. It paid for my regular gasoline purchases. Regular as in leaded. I don't hang out at fast food restaurants so much anymore. I actually I like to cook at home, but on the rare occasion I do visit a fast food restaurant for whatever reason, I'm seeing almost no teenagers. It's not zero, but a lot of adult workers, a lot of people in their 30s, 20s, 30s, definitely 30s, some 20s. Is this a shift? Is it more adults that are taking fast food restaurant jobs? Is it that big companies don't want to hire young people to work in these jobs? I actually would have to wonder if, especially if you're in a state that requires a substantial minimum wage, is it that why should I pay that much money to a kid when an adult will be more reliable? In quotes, of course, that varies, but I don't know. I don't know how that works, but that's an absolute change. The nature of getting that first high school job. And by the way, when I was working at McDonald's, that was not my first job. My first job was working in our family restaurant when I was 10. And did I do some other stuff? I think I might have done one or two other things, but yeah, so McDonald's was my first job outside the family in the mall, Metro Center Mall, in fact. But yeah, today it's a lot of adult workers. I suppose on the plus side, young entrepreneurs can break into content creation and cryptocurrency trading to make the big dollars. Interesting times, certainly. Neither of those are particularly appealing if you just let anything go. If there's nobody saying, that doesn't seem like a good idea. Far too many anecdotal cases of people going well off the rails with some very unhappy and unfortunate endings in some cases. Why were people losing their minds at the possibility of TikTok getting shut down in the US? Well, there's one reason: monetization. It is the way people make money, entertaining and sometimes misleading others for fun and profit. So, YouTube, TikTok, any of these sites become potential scams, potential misinformation that leads to people, sign up for this or pay money for that, and taking advantage of fan and audience and so on. And it's not the Wild West of criminality, but it's still something that could happen. That's true of most things. This would have been an outlandish notion a couple of decades ago. What, you're just going to point a camera at your own self and make your own television station? I guess Justin TV kind of changed that up a little bit, and YouTube, of course. Now it's a thing of global negotiation. Like which government is going to have some sort of say in what's allowed and what isn't for kids to watch on their For You page. I want to be a YouTuber is a reasonable entrepreneurial aspiration. This is a ridiculous a few decades ago. And with college being completely unnecessary, according to some, I don't agree with that at all. It's completely unnecessary for some, but according to some, it is generally unnecessary. I don't agree with that. If your doctor has not attended college, run away. Why not just do it all online? Why not? Why would you ever have to learn anything on your own? This is obviously getting worse nowadays. The days of staying at one job for decades were already faded when I entered the job market 30 years ago or so. They are long gone today. When I was going for that interview, I was staying with a relative in Saratoga, California, and he said, "Well, remember, when you get this job, try thinking about staying there for 40 years." And I was like, "Okay, sure." I stayed at that job from July till October 1st when they laid me off of 1993. Obviously, the words of the day are artificial intelligence. And nowadays, there's talk of how AI will take 100 million jobs over the next decade. It will kill humanity, destroy the world, all that stuff. I wouldn't put it past the people that are making money on all this stuff. Hey, if you make money by taking away jobs, who are you going to give that money to? Like, there won't be any people around doing anything, or if you do, they're going to hate you. Anyway, that's a dystopian future we can all plan for now. There were no such realities a few decades ago. The thing of fiction in, let's think about it. 2001, A Space Odyssey, The Forbin Project, which is a better movie than book, I think. The Terminator, of course, War Games, and the list goes on and on. When past is prologue, perhaps. Maybe The Time Machine was the one we should all have been paying attention to. So which would be, listener, Morlock or Eloy? Myself, I prefer Morlock, but I don't see myself having a taste for Eloy, so I might be a vegetarian Morlock. But yeah, self-determinism, not sitting around lounging and not knowing anything about anything. But I fear that may be where we're headed. Certainly it's true today. Don't even get me started on some of the interactions I have now and then with people who just have no intellectual curiosity whatsoever. Finally, connection. This topic, the topic of today's episode, came to mind specifically the other day when I was thinking about the whole notion of keeping in touch with people. So much of our interactions are online now with people we do not know, mostly asynchronous or asymmetric or both. That is, we're not actually conversing, we're responding or replying. And it's asymmetric because so often it is one person with an audience of hundreds, thousands, millions. They are not reading your response. They're not reading your message. You're reading theirs. And it could be both. Everything has become a radio call-in show, essentially, with audience engagement over individual connection. How many listeners do I have? And my latest kick now on LinkedIn is I follow people, Production by Street. I follow people who treat LinkedIn like, more Production by Street. I follow people who treat LinkedIn like Instagram. They post selfies all day, and then they have these very dramatic posts about how I used to have only 50 followers, and now I have 300,000. That's just more people they don't care about. People celebrate follower counts, not actual human interactions. They just want to get client deals. They want to turn it into revenue. There's no humanity. Crazy. So much of this stuff is online, and it's that nobody really pays attention to the actual interactions. Everything has become a radio call-in show. Think about it. Think about that. I'll let you think about it for a moment. No, there's no more. There's not no more, but there's very little focus on individual connection. And I think this is a shame, in my opinion. Not to say that technology has not made connection more easily possible in the old days. So somewhere between then and now. So I'm going to say in the early 90s, when AOL Instant Messenger was a way around an ancient switchboard telephony system in one case that I've talked about previously. The availability of email made writing letters less important, but still point to point. I would write someone an email and they would respond, and you could have an actual email conversation around the world. With limits, there was always the trickiness of email addressing and so on. Everything has become so standardized and accessible. It's almost too easy. In fact, it probably is. The value of an email message is nearly zero. Near real-time information sharing is essentially free. Most of us are reachable all the time, maybe too often, for pennies, if that, with our mobile devices. When these were new, they were used in these ways today, to talk to people, to communicate, to say, oh, I can email you now and you don't have to wait a month for my message to get to you around the world. Par avion. Today, we cannot imagine receiving a phone call from someone we don't know, thanks to caller ID. We chat over talking. So instead of talking, I don't want to talk to you. I can just send you a text. I can send you a message on WhatsApp or whatever. We probably get an order of magnitude more spam or scam email and other messages, much less in our physical mailboxes, over anything we might actually want to receive. I cannot remember the last time I received a piece of mail in my mailbox that was from a person. In college, we used to call this mail from things because, my roommates and I would check mail. Like, oh, here's your mail. Here's your mail. What, anything, all mail from things? Oh, who cares? Very rare to get mail from an individual person in the modern times. And that's the way it is. And that's also true of email. Do you respond to emails that you receive from people? Think about it. Do they respond to yours? Finally, this is the final point. The algorithm is everything now, of course. We receive what we are sent, and we are sent what we are likely to consume, and that ideally leads to profit somewhere. That is not a theory, but the economy of most things at this point, the attention economy. How did you come upon this audio program, for example? How do you find most things? Do you look for them, or do they appear before you as you move through your day? Paid advertising and optimized content, focused content, optimized engagement. It is not like, it was not it. See, I blew my closer. It was not like that then as it is now. Maybe it was just as bad as this, but in a different, less optimal form. It's hard to say. I think advertising is generally the root of all evil, but it's also an essential one. So that is part of the problem. But the algorithm is where it's at, and it's going to be fueling more and more things with AI taking over. Generative AI can provide an optimized response to you that sounds very human in the name of trying to get you to buy something or take some action or continue engaging you for whatever reason. Boy, my friends don't respond to me, but the AI from Amazon is chatting me up about buying new oh, maybe I should buy that product that I had on my wish list that's on sale for Prime Day. Thanks for contacting me, Desmond, or whatever. I don't know if you've ever interacted with Amazon support. They always got human names and they always sound like real people, but you never know, except you kind of do. And more often in recent years, it was people just not from around here. You're like, is that really your name? But I'm encountering more and more robotic interactions. Oh, did you want to speak to a person? Obviously then versus now in that regard is a vast difference, and it's probably going to get worse. Anyway, interesting times. I don't think humans engage with humans enough anymore. I think technology has become a divider, not a uniter, I suppose. And as I was alluding to earlier, it used to be that you could email your friend or your family or whatever. You could send out an email to your family members with pictures of the new house, the new child, the recent graduation, the new, whatever an announcement. Oh yeah, did you hear about so-and-so? Those are the things that you used to mail to people in paper envelopes with actual photos. Do not bend. Initially email me. Oh, it's so much easier. I can send the pictures to everybody all at the same time. Now you can do that with something like Facebook and make sure that they get all of your habits and online communications and your network of individuals with whom you converse and so on. They got all that data from you. And in exchange, you get to not deal with email. You just have to do the same exact thing you would otherwise, but get a third party in there. And then no one ever has to respond or interact with you whatsoever, although you will still get a like count because random people can like your content. It's become a weird thing, and motivations are odd. And at the end of the day, I don't hear from anyone. and probably good. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Just reflecting on some of the old versus new. I can't help but wonder if I'm a part of this in some way, but given my career path, and I did work for Netscape. Netscape was one of the companies that has enabled some of this. I worked for Apple at some point, not on the iPhone. But yeah, a few of the pieces of the puzzle come from tech, and they aren't necessarily good when you really think about it. That's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for listening, as always. Do check out my various other programs, or even just other episodes of this one. I got to get those listener counts up. It's all about the numbers. Take care. Take care, and I will talk to you again tomorrow, next week, all the time. Bye bye.